Om Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankara-Acharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahi Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे। ओम श्री हयग्रीवाय नमः। ओम श्री वल्लभा समेत श्री महागणाधिपतये नमः। So we were in the topic of anubhutehe nityatva upapattih. The Purva Pakshin Vishishtadvaitin says that anubhuti or anubhava is not nitya. Anubhava or jnana itself is anityam for them, because jnana is a dharma and atma is a dravya where this dharma is there. So they also use the term dharma bhuta jnanam and all that. Jnana in the form of a dharma or a quality. And this jnanam, the swaprakashatvam of the jnanam also therefore is not nitya for them. When the jnanam lights up the vishaya, the object of cognition, at that time both the object of the cognition and jnana are together, they light up each other, something like that. They have a concept. So their argument is that if we say jnana is nitya, the vishaya also should become nitya. Because if the jnanam is always there, vishayam has to be always there. There cannot be any jnana by itself without a vishaya. This is their problem. So if then we say that if you say like that, then there cannot be any vishaya also without jnana. But you say the jnana goes away, then vishaya also has to go away. Or vishaya's existence cannot be there if jnana itself is not there. So like this, but what we say is that is not true. You do not say that. Why? Because everybody in the vyavahara, we have to accept ajnata satta. Only the pratibhasika we say does not have ajnata satta. Like when you do not know it, or when you do not perceive it, it is not there. That is said only for subjective cognition, correct? Erroneous cognition, which are all subjective, like seeing a snake on the rope. But if you are cognizing a pot in the transactional world, the pot's existence is accepted even when you are not cognizing it. Otherwise, in fact, nobody can even do any vyavahara with the pot, correct? Because you see there is a pot, then you decide that you go somewhere else to check whether any water is there. Then you take the pot to fetch the water, let us say. Now, the entire vyavahara is possible because even when you are not seeing the pot, pot has to be there because you have already seen it and it is there. Now you think, how can I use that pot? And you use it also. So based on all these things, ajnata satta for the vyavaharika ghata is acceptable to all. In fact, he said that here. You can see vyavaharikasya ghatasya astihi ajnata satta. नहि कोऽपि अनुन्मत्तः इदानीं मम घटप्रत्यक्षं जातम् इति इदानीमेव घटः अस्ति इतः पूर्वोत्तरक्षणयोः घटः नासीत् न भविष्यति इति प्रत्येति. So what he is saying, in the vyavahara, घटा has ajnata satta because nobody who is anunmattaha means who is not mad or deluded. Okay, normal people, sane people, let us say anunmattaha. So now I have cognize the pot. Okay, I have the pot pratyaksha. Pot perception is there, cognition is there, but pot is there only while I am cognizing. Nobody says that, correct? That it is not, it was not there before, it will not be there in the next moment. Like that, nobody says. In the Vyavahara, the Vyavaharika cognition, the Vyavaharika perception is not, does not make the object of perception momentary. That is the idea. So this being the case, you saying that the jnanam can only be there while it is perceiving the Vishaya, there is no basis for saying that. That's what we are saying. If you say that, then you have to also say the object also is not there when it is not perceived. But that is also not true, correct? So the jnana can exist even when it is not lighting up anything, is the point we are trying to make. Okay, that is where the whole argument is going. Once we say this, they try to come back, okay, saying that you people only say that there is no Jagat, okay, that Jagat is there only when the Drishti is there, etc. So, Purva Pakshi is now saying, Nacha, Advaitina eva uktam yada ghata pratitihi tada ghataha yada na ghata pratitihi tada na ghataha iti vachyam. Okay, na vachyam. Why? Because what they are saying is, Advaitis are only saying that when the ghata is perceived, only ghata is there. When the ghata is not perceived, ghata is not there. There is a drishti srishti vada. So drishti eva srishti hi. Like this, you people are only saying, means that you can't say now. Why? So the answer is pratiti atirikta jagad abhavavada vishayatva tad vakyasya. Okay, see that vakya or even the drishti srishti vada is not negating the Vyavaharika Satta or Ajnata Satta of Vyavaharika. What it is trying to say is there is no Srishti other than Chaitanyam itself. Separate from the Chaitana Atma or Paramatma, there is no Srishti. Okay? Srishti itself, like even the dream world, is not there separate from the dreamer, correct? You cannot separate out the dream world from the dreamer. But the dreamer, the reality of the dreamer and the dream world together is dependent on an independent entity who is the waker, correct? Waker only dreams. Similarly, the reality of the waker and the waking world also, because they are mutually dependent, correct? That is what is called Madhu in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Very interesting. There is a Madhu Brahmanam. So the Madhu Brahmanam says that everything is interdependent. The karya, whatever you think is the karya, from a different standpoint, it becomes the karana. And whatever you think is karana, you think is karana becomes the karya also. From another standpoint, like this, the karya and karana are mutually dependent. So this mutual dependence points out to a third entity which has to have independent existence and which can then bring about this mutually dependent entities. So like this, that Brahman alone is like that. Everything else in the Srishti is Madhu. Like this, there is a beautiful Prakriya is there. I think it is the fifth Brahmana in the second chapter of Brihadaranyaka. So all this Drishti Srishti Vada is from the Paramarthika Drishti, that without Chaitanyam there is neither perception nor perceived object. That is the Advaita Siddhanta. That is not in any way against the Vyavaharika Ajnata Satta of thought. In fact, you can extend that even to a dream, correct? Within the dream world, the Ajnata Satta is there for the dream Vishaya, for the dream cognizer. That you cannot deny. The entire dream and dreamer, everything is Mithya only from the standpoint of the waker, correct? So this is where one has to be very clear about this order of realities. From which order of reality we are discussing. So here, when we are discussing this anubhava and anubhuti swarupa, all that, within the vyavahara, you cannot claim that this ghata does not have ajnata satta. Nobody is claiming that. Even Bhashyakara doesn't claim that. A lot of Bhashya is written. In fact, in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya also, he is writing Bhashya against the Vijnanavadis, who claim that everything is only in the mind. So we don't accept that. Bhashyakara says that the existence of Vishaya in the Vyavahara is not, everything is not created by your mind, correct? That nobody can say. So we are not talking from that standpoint. So this is the main thing here. So he says that pratiti atirikta jagad abhava vada vishayatva tadvakyasya. So that vada, whatever we are saying that Jagat is not there without pratiti, is to only show that the pratiti swarupa, which is Atma, is the only Satya. Okay. And further he says, here he is little bit derogatory. So he says, Tasya javadasya susukshma buddhi vishayatvat kim tena tava. So he is saying that vada is for whatever. It is a very subtle argument or methodology of teaching. It is susukshma vishaya. In fact, even more, it is highly subtle. Okay, susukshma, not just subtle, highly subtle, and you will not get it anyway. So we are not even discussing such things here. We are discussing within the Vyavahara how knowledge takes place and what is the nature of this knowledge, what does it point to, etc. That is what we are discussing here. So let us come back to the topic. So therefore, what tasmat indriyartha sannikarsha janyasya प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञानस्य घटादि विषयस्य क्षणिकत्वं यद्वा त्रिचतुर क्षणस्थायित्वम् अथवा स्वविरोधी वृत्त्यंतर उत्पत्ति पर्यंत स्थायित्वम् एव न तु यावत् स्वविषय स्थायित्वम् इति तस्य अनित्यत्वम् अस्माकम् इष्टमेव. Okay, so what we are saying is this Indriyartha Sannikarsha Janya Pratyaksha is defined by Nayayikas like that. Okay. So the Indriya and Artha have to come into contact, and from that, whatever direct perception you have of any object like pot, that knowledge is momentary. We accept that. Each and every cognition is momentary. Or some people say that it is there for 3 or 4 moments. Tri Chaturakshani Kshanastayitvam. Or we say that even like you keep looking at one thing for a length of time, but still how long you can keep on looking at it, you turn somewhere else, means by another cognition. Till the time another cognition is born, one cognition is there. Okay. So swavirodhi vrityantara utpatti paryanta sthayitvam. That is what is called. Okay. So until another cognition which is opposed to the existing cognition is born, the cognition stays. Okay. So this we have no, that is ishta for us only, he is saying. Okay, tasya and that is anitya, we accept because it is dependent on the vritti, mano vritti only. As long as the manovritti is there, that cognition is there. So it is, that cognition is anitya or momentary, and that is ishta for us. Vritti jnanam is anitya. We have no problem with that. But then what are you trying to say? You are trying to say that since vritti itself is anitya, and the Vishaya Jnanam, Vritti Vishaya Jnanam is Anitya, Anubhava or Jnanam itself is Anitya, correct? That is the extrapolation these people are doing. So, that for the Jnanam, they are saying, Yavat Swavishaya Sthayitvam, that we cannot accept. Okay, Natu Yavat Swavishaya Sthayitvam is there here. That inference, there is no basis for you to do that inference. Okay, you cannot do that. So, that's what we cannot accept. Okay. So there are two jnanams are there. That's what we are talking about. Okay. We are saying there is a vritti jnanam which is janya because it is dependent on the vritti itself. But there is a swarupa jnanam which is ajanyam, which is always there, which is nitya. So he is explaining that further. He is saying yattu ajanyam jnanam tasyaiva nityatvam vayam bhrumaha. So whatever jnana which we are saying is nitya, it is not born like the vritti jnanam. It is always there. That is the jnanam we are talking about as nitya, not whatever you are talking about. Okay, the vritti which is produced by the indriyartha sanikarsha. That is anitya. We have no problem. So once we say this, what they come back and say, nasti ajanyam jnanam iti vachyam. So he is saying nasti ajanyam jnanam. There is nothing called ajanyam jnanam, uncreated consciousness or unborn, uncrossed consciousness, nothing like that is there. Ajanyam jnanam we don't accept. You cannot say that. Why? ज्ञानस्य स्वतः अजन्यत्वेपि उपाधिवशात् भवति जन्यत्वम् इति. So what we are saying is, whatever you say as janyam jnanam, it is all due to only upadhi. Jnana is nitya. For that there is a shruti pramana is there. Anubhava also is there, correct? Nobody can cognize their own non-existence. Therefore, there is no other pramana also to say that Anubhava Jnanam is anitya. And Shruti also comes and says that Jnanam is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Correct? Jnanam is Ananta. So Shruti Pramana is only establishing the Nityatvam of this Jnanam. So therefore you cannot say there is no Ajanyam Jnanam. And even the Janyatvam is only with reference to the Upadhi Vashat, Upadhi due to the Upadhi. So Jnana by itself is not born, but it appears to be born when the vritti, manovritti is born. Okay. Therefore, what by this, what do we establish? Yetena vrittehe eva janyatvam natu tat pratipalita chaitanya lakshana jnanasya iti siddham. So we have established that from all this discussion that vritti alone is born, and when the vritti is born, the consciousness is manifest there. That is what is called tat pratipalita chaitanya. Whatever consciousness which is manifest when the vritti is born must be already there. That is why it is manifesting there. And that doesn't mean the Chaitanya or consciousness itself is born newly. So it is not for the Chaitanya or Jnana. The knowledge which is characterized by this consciousness or awareness, that itself is not born. That is established. Okay, once we say this, what they now come back. वृत्तेः चैतन्यस्य च विवेचनस्य दुष्करत्वेन क्षीरनीर विवेचनवत् तस्य परमहंसैकविषयत्वेन विषयत्वेन च रामानुजस्य तद्विवेचन अशक्ततया एतादृशभाष्यकृतं कृतत्वम् इति संतोष्टव्यं बुद्धिमद्भिः. Okay, even okay, after all these things, then why did Ramanuja write a bhashya like that? If somebody asks a question, then what can we say? So he is saying this vritti and chaitanya to differentiate and know them. Correct? Vivechana karam means you are able to discriminate between them. That discriminatory knowledge is not very easy. In fact, Bhashyakara also says this, I think, in the Brihadaranyaka Swayanjyoti Brahmanam, that Vijnana Mayaha, Atma is called Vijnana Mayaha there, Vijnana Kayaha. That is because Atma is first manifest in the Buddhi, correct? And therefore, the tendency is to take the Atma as the Buddhi Vritti only. And it is not very easy for somebody to discriminate awareness from the states of mind. This Bhashyakara also says that it's Dushkara. So to discriminate Buddhi and Chaitanya and know them differently is a very difficult thing. And that is why we have so many different Siddhantas, correct? So many different wrong notions about this Atma is there. Different people are saying different things, whatever comes to their mind. So to discriminate and know that is like differentiating the water from the milk, he is saying. Kshira Neera Vivechanavat. And legendary swan is there, okay? I don't know whether really swans can do this, but it is claimed that Hamsas can discriminate milk and water and only take the milk. If you give them a watery milk, they will separate out the milk from that and drink only the milk and not the water. That is the Paramahamsaika Vishaya. That is for only the Paramahamsas. Ramanuja doesn't have that capability, he is saying. Ramanujasya tad vivechana ashaktataya. He didn't have that ability, therefore he wrote whatever he has written, his Bhashya, from whatever understanding he has. And in that, whatever is valid also we can accept. Okay, this is, we can try to do some, uh, we can try to do what we call some reconciliation. That also Bhashyakara does that even in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, the second chapter of Brahma Sutra, there is a whichever other Siddhantas we negate, after negating their claims which are against the Shruti, whatever is not against the Shruti, we accept. So it doesn't mean that if we reject Ramanuja, we are rejecting Bhakti or even Sharanagati. So we have no problem with Bhakti and Sharanagati. In fact, real Sharanagati is we have to do Sharanagati to the Pramana. Okay? And real Sharanagati is what? You surrender all your limitations. Why are you holding on to a limited individual ego and call it Sharanagati? There is no Sharanagati. Yena tyajasi tat tyaja. Give up even that, the notion that I am an individual. You do surrender that and then you discover you are the limitless. Correct? That is the beauty of the Shastra. So real Sharanagati is you surrender all your limitations. And then whatever is there is the limitless alone remains there. You surrender everything which is changing. And then you discover that you are the changeless Atma. There is nothing else. You surrender everything which is varying and then discover that you are the invariable in each and every cognition. That is surrender. That is Sharanagati. Anyway. So here he has written a Bhashya, it's okay. Like this, we have to be happy, he's saying. So, etadrida bhashya kritatvam iti santoshtavyam buddhimatvihi. Those who are vivekis, buddhimat, panditas, they have to they have to satisfy themselves thinking like this, he says. because you can't ask why he has written like that and all that. Okay. Now, okay, with this one portion of the topic is over, we are going to next topic or next discussion within the same topic. So, yaduktam shruta prakashikakarena संविदपेक्षया एव विषयस्य अतीतत्वानागतत्वे भवतः इति कृत्वा नित्यत्वे संविदः तद्विषया अपि नित्याः स्युः इति तदपि मन्दम्. Okay, the Sruta Prakashikakara, again he is giving this argument saying that a cognition happened in the past, correct? I knew a part or I will know a part, etc., future, etc., or I am knowing a part currently. So all these things, this Vishaya, the Vishaya Jnana takes place, and then the Vishaya itself, whether it is in the past or it is right now, or it will be there in the future, etc., those things are depending on the cognition itself, he is saying, okay? And if that cognition or consciousness itself is Nityam, then the Vishaya will become Nitya. In fact, this argument I told you already, correct? This is one of their arguments. If consciousness is eternal, then all the Vishayas also will become eternal. There will not be any idea of past, present, and future itself cannot be there. This is their intention. In fact, the past, present, future, etc., cognition of a object is dependent on the cognition itself being past, present, and future, is what they are saying. Therefore, cognition cannot be eternal, or the consciousness cannot be eternal. So, if nityatve samvidaha sati tad vishaya api nitya syuhu, this is their argument. But that is not a very bright argument. Tadapi mandam. Why? यदि संविदपेक्षया विषयस्य अतीत अनागतत्वे भवतः तर्हि संविदः किम अपेक्षया ते भवतः. So you are saying संविदपेक्षया विषय whatever अतीतत्वम अनागतत्वम and all is there means. What about संविद's own अतीतत्वम? Because you are saying संविद itself is संविद or consciousness is momentary. Then its own past, present or future existence, how did it happen, or on what it depends? You cannot say it is swa-apekshya. That's what. See, nacha swa-apekshaya eva iti vachyam. If you say samvit, its own past, present, and future is dependent on itself, then the same thing can be said for Vishaya. Just now you said that Vishaya's Atitatvam, Anagatatvam and all depends on Samvit. Why should for Vishaya alone it depend on Samvit? Correct? So, nacha swa apekshaya eva iti vachyam vai vishayasyapi tathaiva vaktavyatvat. Okay. So now you say, okay, it is not swa apeksha. Then what? Nacha vishaya apekshaya iti vachyam anyonyashrayat. If you say it is because of the vishaya, then just now you said vishayas atitatvam, anadagatatvam, etc. depends on samvit, and samvit depends on vishaya means it is anyonya ashraya. This is the madhu. Anyonya ashraya will come. Or you cannot say there is another samvit. नापि संविद अंतर अपेक्षया इति वाच्यं तस्यापि संविद अंतर अपेक्षया इति अनवस्था दोषात्. If you propose another consciousness to know the atitatvam or anagatatvam of this consciousness, then that will have anavastha dosha. It will go into infinite regress. Therefore, what do you do? So we have to say what? Tasmat kala apekshaya eva vishayasya atitatvadikam वर्तमान काल अवच्छिन्नः घटः वर्तमानः इति अतीतकालावच्छिन्नः अतीतः इति आगामिकालावच्छिन्नः भविष्यन् इति भविष्यति च व्यपदिश्यते. So what do we say? this atitatvam, anagatatvam, etc. are dependent on time itself, we say. Correct? It is not dependent on the chaitanyam or object, etc. It is dependent on your cognition of time. So kala apekshaya, all these things we can say. And in that whatever object is qualified by the present time, it is there in the present. Whatever object is qualified by the past is in the past. Whatever object will be qualified with the future by a future time will be in future. Like this only we talk about it, correct? Vyapadishyate. That's how we describe it. So it is all dependent on time itself. Okay. But once we say this, what? Nityasya kalasya ekam atitattvadikam. This is where our see kala is nitya. They are going by nayayikas. And even akasha is nitya. They have in fact multiple nitya vastus. In fact, in science, in mathematics also, they talk about many infinites. If you go into infinite series in mathematics and all that, because you take the real number, different sets of numbers, etc., you take, they talk about different infinities. Anyway, but that is all in a very restricted sense you can talk about like that. There is no absolute infinity. Absolute infinity is only one, which is Brahman. Okay. So here, this kala is nitya. How can it have past, present, and all, etc.? If you say we don't accept that, na vachyam. Okay. Why? Because kala is divided. It has vikalpa. So dina masadi lakshanasya kalasya pratitattvadi darshana. So kala is characterized by day, month, etc. Therefore, we do have kala only is having atitatvam, anagatatvam, vartamanatvam, etc. And kala also is created. Bhashyakara says, because if you read the Bhashya, Brahman is kalasyapi karanatvat, he says. That is why it is Jagat Karana. In the Taittiriya Bhashya, this tasmad etasmad atmanaha akasha sambhutaha. In that portion, and also the anantatvam, to establish the anantatvam of Brahman, he says that kalasyapi karanam, and therefore it is also the karana for all the vastus. That's how Brahman being the sarva karanam, it is ananta. It is deshataha anantaha, kalataha anantaha, vastutaha also. Correct? So kala is also created only for us. And therefore it is not nitya and it has all these divisions. Okay, nacha evam samvid apekshaya eva kalasya atitattvadikam iti vachyam kala apekshaya eva samvidaha tathatvam iti. Once we say this, if you say that kala is not nitya, then they say, no, no, even the kala's anityatvam is dependent on the cognition which is cognizing that. The cognition itself is anitya, therefore kalam also is anitya. If you say that, then kala apeksha eva samvidaha tatatvam again will come the other way around. But they say that kala is there always. Correct? So you cannot say it will not apply the other way around. Correct? So that already we discussed this point. Therefore, what? अस्मिन् क्षणे वर्तमानं हि घटज्ञानं वर्तते इति पूर्वक्षणे वृत्तं पटज्ञानम् अतीतमिति उत्तरक्षणे भविष्यत् पुस्तकज्ञानं भविष्यति इति च व्यवहारात्. So why you cannot say that this jnana itself is not nityam? sorry, it is anityam. Like that you cannot say. Because in the current you have one cognition, ghata jnana, part consciousness is previously what you were looking at some cloth. So cloth consciousness was, maybe after the ghata you will look at book, consciousness will be, but in each of this consciousness is not changing. Okay, in the vyavahara also, in each and every cognition there is something which is invariable. Without that, in fact, you cannot have this perception of time itself. So kala apekshaya samvid will become anitya also, you cannot say. Okay, that is why this is an important thing. Vyavahara is there like this. You cannot deny the vyavahara, correct? So once we say this, what? They come back and say, Samvida eva kalasya atitvadikam vedyate iti na vachyam. Okay, once we say this, what? That is fine. In fact, cognition or consciousness alone knows the time. You have to accept that time is known by something, correct? And that consciousness is not nitya. That's what we are also saying. What are you trying to say here? That is what he is asking. So he is saying, Samvida eva kalasya atitvadikam vedyate. Let us say that Samvid only knows the kalas atitatvadikam. And that this kala only qualifies the object. Therefore, objects also have this quality of being atita or vartamana or all these things. So all this is known only by consciousness. Samvida eva vedyate. Fine, yeah. So don't say that as though it is an objection. Why? Because kena uktam samvida na vedyate iti. So we do not claim that time is not cognized by consciousness. We are also saying that time is cognized. But what we are saying is apitu ghata samvida na vedyate iti brumaha. What we are saying is that you are trying to say that if ghata samvid is anitya, then only atitatvam, anagatatvam, etc. can be there. And the ghata samvid itself, because the ghata is only known for whatever momentarily, and because the cognitions keep changing momentarily, and if we do not consider it that consciousness itself as momentary, then the ghata itself will become nitya is one argument they are saying. And the other argument they are saying is kala and all cannot be cognized. So to cognize the kala, they are trying to restrict the Vishaya Chaitanya. That means the Vishayasya Anityatvam should come to the Chaitanyam also. Like this is their argument, correct? That is what we are opposing. We are saying Gat Samvidana Vedyate. Kala is known by Kala Samvid itself. Correct? Kala is an object of consciousness. So that's what we are saying here. Samvid Atiriktam Sarvam Hi Samvid Adhinatva Adhina Stitikam Samvid Ekaiva Swata Siddha. So what we are saying is anything other than consciousness, all of them are all dependent on this consciousness only. That is how it is. Okay, Samvid Adhinastikam, they are all in a state where they are dependent on the consciousness, but consciousness itself is self-existent. So there is only one self-existent entity which is consciousness, which is Swatasiddha and Swaprakasha. Like you say, the Swaprakashatvam of the consciousness or Swatasiddhatvam of the consciousness is not dependent on any Vishaya which it is lighting it up. So you cannot say the consciousness being consciousness depends on the Vishaya, because only when it is lighting up the Vishaya it has light. It is not like that, correct? Like you cannot say the sun is bright only because it is lighting up some object. That is not true. Sun is always bright. Even when the sun sets, its sun's rays are not going anywhere, correct? Sun is always in the same, at least relatively on a day-to-day basis. Sun is the same. Okay. In fact, there is even a song, correct? Sun is the same in a relative way, but you're older. Like there is a song called Time by one famous band. It's a good song. The sun is the same in a relative way. Correct? You think that, but yesterday the pot was lighted up by sun. Today also it is lighting up. That means what? That does it make the sun's light uh, momentary? No, sun is always shining. This is the point they are missing. Okay. So Samvid is Swatasiddha, it is one only, and all the Vishayas are dependent on it for being revealed and for their existence. So this is the Siddhanta. Salasya Atitattvadikam Tatpurvakam Vishayasya Atittvadikam cha Samvidha Nyayate iti Ukti Matrena Katam Samvidaha Atitatvadi Siddhaha Siddhihi. So what we are saying is whether it is time, okay, time, the consciousness of time means you are able to cognize past, present, future, etc. And based on that, the Vishaya also gets past, present, future status. But all these things are known by consciousness only. By saying this, how can you say that consciousness itself is past, present, and future, etc.? Correct? That means consciousness is subjected to time. You cannot say that. That is all we are pointing out here. Samvidaha Atitvadi Siddhihi Katham, we are asking. Okay, once we ask like this, they say, no, no, why can't we say like this? He's saying Atita Samvidaha, Atita Vishaya Prakashaha. So whatever consciousness was there, that alone, that alone lighted up the whatever Vishaya at that time. And Vartamana Samvida, Vartamana Vishaya Prakashaha, whatever Samvid is there now, it is lighting up the current Vishaya. Like this, he is saying, okay, iti, okay, Vartamana Vishaya Prakashascha iti, na Vachyam, you cannot say that. Why? Because Samvid Avachedaka Kala Gatameva Tad Atitattvadikam na Samvid Gatam. See, this Atitattvadi, Anagatam, Vartamanatvam and all is not a quality of Samvid. It is the quality of the Kala. It is the Kala Lakshana, correct? It is not Samvid Lakshana. That's what he is pointing out here. So Samvid Avachedaka Kala Gatam. So Kala as a Upadhi can, so being a limiting factor, it can as though limit the consciousness and make you think that there was a past consciousness, current consciousness, future consciousness, etc. But really it is not any limitation in the consciousness itself. It is only upadhigata. It is only in the kala itself. This characterization of past, present, future is there. In fact, if you really see that, you cannot even establish that there is time. Because to establish time, you have to define what is present, what is now. Because always now alone is there. Only from the standpoint of now, past, future, etc. we are talking about. So first you define now, means you cannot define whether it is nanosecond, picosecond, what is now? So now itself is really a adhyasa only, correct? It is adhyaropa on the ever existing consciousness. It is same, even space also same thing, correct? Point, if you take the physics and mathematics and all that, amazing thing is you can see how much adhyaropa they have done, but they take it very lightly. They don't know the implication of that adhyaropa they are doing, because there is no geometry without point. But point itself, if you see, geometry defines it as something which does not occupy any space. Correct? You go back to your elementary geometry and see how point is defined. Entire calculus is based on infinitesimal, which again is a adhyaropa, correct? So it's all adhyaropa. You define a point as not occupying any space, but then a series of point makes a line. How is that possible? Similarly, time itself, now itself you cannot define, but a series of now becomes a period of time. So time, space, everything is all adhyaropa. You cannot, it is all maya. That is the greatest maya, correct? Time and space itself is maya. And anyway, so here it is all only the characteristic of time. This atitatvam, anagatatvam, it is not consciousness which is really delimited by all that. Okay. Na samvidgatam. Therefore, what in fact he is giving the analogy which I already talked about. He says, Yatha purva dina sthita surya prakashena eva etat dina sthita surya prakasha bhasyaha api घटः भास्यते नहि काल भेद मात्रेण सूर्य प्रकाश भेदः तद्वत्. So see, he's saying, see, yesterday sun shined on something. पूर्वदिनस्थित सूर्यप्रकाशेन एव एतद्दिनस्थित सूर्यप्रकाशभास्यः इति घटः भास्यते. So what was revealed by sunlight yesterday, then sunset. Today also part is revealed by the sunlight. Okay. So from this, can you say that this Kala Bheda is there? You say because part was lighted up yesterday, part was cognized yesterday, part is cognized today. So there is a Kala Bheda. But the Surya Prakasha Bheda also is there. Because of that, you cannot say. Surya Prakasha is always there. Surya is always shining. In fact, that's why Bhashyakara in one place say there is an argument about Trich Pratyaya itself. Trich Pratyaya means always it implies a Kshanika activity like this. The Purva argues in one place in Brihadaranyaka Bhashya, interestingly. There Bhashyakara gives this example of sun. He says, although we say that this sun is Prakash, that Prakashita, let us say, sun is the one who is lighting up something. But Trich Pratyaya with reference to sun does not mean that the sun's light is itself is momentary, or it is a momentary activity which sun is doing. That activity on part of the sun is purely adhyaropita, correct? Sun is not really shining anything. Sun is sun. It is Swarupa is to be bright. That's all. It is there as it is. You are doing an adhyaropa of an activity saying that sun is the one which shines this object. So you can say it is prakashita. You can put the trich pratyaya there. But that trich pratyaya does not imply any momentariness or any activity on the part of the sun. Correct? So that's what, like that here, the Surya Prakasha does not have any Veda. It is always the same. The Veda and all only you are looking at it like that, purely Adhyaropita, or the Veda is there in your cognition of the pot, etc. Because you cognized the pot yesterday, in between there was no light, you could not cognize it. Again, you are cognizing, that is fine. Therefore, what? Tasma Ghata Jnanamapi Nityam Suprakasham Cha, the Jnana which makes the Ghata Jnanam possible, correct? That is Nitya and Suprakasha. But the Ghata Vishaya itself is Anitya, correct? Ghata Vishayaha, Ghataha, the Jnana Vishaya which is Ghata, Eva Anityaha, Jadascha, and that is Jada. And therefore, Tat Prayuktameva Tasya Anityatvam iti. So even the Anityatva of the Ghata Jnanam is not the Anityatva of the Jnanam, it is the Anityatva of the Vishaya which is Adhyaropita and the Jnanam itself, and we have a Vyavahara like that. Okay, that's what he is pointing out. So once we say this, that there is a Jnana which is there other than the Vishaya, that itself Ramanuja does not accept. Okay, so that is the next topic he is taking. Yeduktam Ramanujena Nirvishaya Kachit Samvid Nacha Asti. So they do not accept a Nirvishaya Jnanam at all. Nirvikalpaka Jnanam, Nirvishaya Jnanam. Jnanam means it has to always be there only with Vishaya. Okay, subject and object have to be always together. There is no consciousness which is independent of subject object Vyavahara. That is their Siddhanta, and they are saying it is established by Anupalabdhi Pramana itself. Okay, Anupalabdehe iti. So by Anupalabdhi, we can say that there is no Samvid, which is Nirvishaya, because we don't see anything like that he is saying. There is no Nirvishaya. Samvid is not cognized. That is the Anupalabdhi he is talking about. And if it is there, it should have been cognized, but it is not cognized. Therefore, there is nothing called Nirvishaya Samvid or Nirvishaya Chaitanya. We do not accept Tad Asat. That is not true. This argument we will see in the next class. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.